So in today's video, we are going to be talking about the Ripple versus SEC case. We have some news coming in on when it could potentially be ending. We also have some news developing regarding the Xrp ETF and one of these big firms that could be filing for it, or actually have done so. So we'll be getting into those deadlines, but let's first have a look at the current market so far. We're not doing too bad. It is a slower recovery day. It looks like as if we have bounced back, but XRP is trading at $2.23. We are actually up by 2.72% on the one-day chart. Volume is down, so it was actually at 8 billion. Now it's at 6.72 billion. So we've lost 25% of that really. But again, we're going quite well in the market. It's green and we're not as flatlined compared with yesterday. So that's when it broke down below the $2 level, but we've been able to go back up again. Pretty nice stuff. In terms of the SEC, this is what has happened so far. So Eleanor Terrett, who's well known in the XRP community and crypto in general, she said that two well-placed sources tell me that the SEC versus Ripple case is in the process of wrapping up and could be over soon. Now, in terms of these sources, who could they be? Could she potentially be held liable for naming these sources? When it comes to things like this, especially when someone's going on a lawsuit, it's very difficult to give those sources out. And so, of course, I understand when people are frustrated that she's not naming the sources. But again, she is somewhat an insider to this. And so it is some sort of news for us. Now, my understanding is that the delay in reaching an agreement is due to Ripple's legal team negotiating more favorable terms regarding the August District Court ruling, which imposed a $125 million fine on the company and included a permanent injunction preventing the company from selling XRP to institutional investors. Now, the argument that she's told is that if the new SEC leadership is wiping the enforcement slate clean for all previously targeted crypto firms. Now remember, this isn't just Ripple. This is with other firms as well that got targeted and hit down by the SEC. Because it believes regulatory clarity will resolve the underlying issue, why should Ripple still be penalized? So why is it those ones that are really going through it, especially being in the limelight now for the past couple of years and potentially putting off some big investments, right? Accepting the Torres ruling as it stands would mean that Ripple is essentially agreeing to admit to wrongdoing. And I personally don't believe that Ripple did actually commit any sort of wrongdoing after looking at the documents and with everything that we've seen so far for the past couple of years. But now that the SEC itself is seemingly unsure whether any wrongdoing occurred, there's no real playbook for this kind of thing, which could explain why this case has taken longer to resolve than the rest. And of course, stay tuned if you want to know more updates regarding that. Now, we know that this is a very difficult situation. However, some positive news is that the SEC, of course, was operating differently back then. They were just hitting firm after firm. And to be honest with you, it got quite frustrating, right? Especially with Ripple being in the limelight. But now we are seeing a different SEC come to light with different rules and, of course, differently to Gary Gensler. Now, the amount of scrutiny Ripple has received so far is enormous, and people do think that once this lawsuit ends, that maybe the price of XRP could go to $5, $10, even $20. Now, I personally don't think it is going to be that much of a jump, because at the end of the day, what really determines this price in general is volume, of course, but big whales and institutional adoption. Once we're able to get that, I think that we will be seeing more of this, and especially when we have the lower supply and more demand. When you have more demand, more people driving up the price, that's what's going to cause it, right? I do think that the lawsuit, once it's dropped, will be some good news, but I don't think it's going to skyrocket to the price that people want it to be. I think it's just going to be one of those build-ups, and maybe we might see, for example, a 25 to 30% increase, but in the long term, it may actually drop. So again, we don't know when it actually will be. But if you have a look over here from Mr. Mam, apparently these guys were discussing the fact that the case could be ending in either November 2025 or next year in April or July. In my opinion, I wouldn't actually give a date or set anything to it because I think it's very hard to determine. And I think it also gets a lot of people's hopes up. Not only that, but also for investors. And I think that once this date comes to fruition, for example, with November, and the lawsuit is still going ahead, well, that means that, of course, it is just another setback that people think. And so they might actually be pulling away from their investment. So again, this is just some news regarding the lawsuit, but we don't actually know when it will be closed. In terms of the XRP ETF news, you'll see over here that we have Franklin Templeton has now sought fund approval. I believe that they actually filed for an S1 form. Now, why this is huge is because we already know that Franklin Templeton also, I believe, are invested in Stellar XLM with the ETF. You'll see over here that it grew bullish overnight that XRP ETFs will be approved. An investment from this applied for fund approval. Now, JP Morgan estimates that investors will pour $8 billion into XRP ETFs. So we're going to have a lot of cash inflow coming in there, and that's why it is a good opportunity, of course, and also for XRP in general. You see over here that the chances for an ETF jumped to 76% from 72%, and this is based on just the market in general and what's being predicted. So in terms of their assets, they have 1.6 trillion. These are the likes of like BlackRock and JP Morgan. So Franklin Templeton are quite big in terms of that respect. And again, we know that Ripple XRP has potential to do this, but it just depends whether or not we're going to be seeing that ETF sometime soon. According to Chad Steingraber, though, we have this document published over here, which talks about the potential date for it. And we can see over here that the commission designates May the 22nd as a date by which the commission shall either approve or disapprove. So we have a couple of months before that, but again, this does not essentially mean that it is going to be approved. And so we'll have to see what comes of that. But if you remember when we had all of those ETFs back last year, when it was all popping off, and then we actually did see some sort of rise in the tokens and the crypto market in general. I think that this could be a small catalyst. Again, maybe only roughly around about 15 or 20% increase on the one day, perhaps for 1 to 2 days, and then of course we're going to see a little bit of a dump as people sell their coins. Let's take a look at the price action in general. So on the 7-day chart, of course, we were at $2.60. We were pretty high. We had this tariff news. We went to a new low of that 1.92. Now on the 1 month chart, how bad are we doing? We're only down by 8.33%. Actually, you can see over here that we had that head and shoulders. So we went from 2.27 all the way to 2.937, and then back down again to 2.31. That was a head and shoulders pattern. Then you'll see that we started to rise again to 2.61. But we majored quite down and low. In terms of this, where do I see XRP going? Again, it just depends on the market and what will be coming. I mean, today we had this CPI data. Stocks have gone back up a bit. I do think that it might be a bit of an artificial fake pump, to be honest with you, just to reel people in. Again, and in terms of this price point for XRP, it is still relatively high if you do actually want to start your position. If you want to actually take it further, I think that a better position would be if it were to fall below $2, and most likely a better position would even be $1 if we can get back to that again. But a conservative estimate would be 150. In terms of the price prediction for this week, if we are able to hold at the 220 level, I definitely see that XRP can get to 230. If not, and we break through this, then we could potentially go back down to 1.9. Again, it depends on how the market just performs in the next couple of days and what key data that we have. So we are at 2.68 trillion for the wider market. Bitcoin is at 82.5. Great that the fact that it is still up and above the 80,000 level. If you have a look at the fear index, again, pretty much the same. It's at 19. I think before it was at 15 yesterday, so it has increased a little bit by 4. We're just seeing that a little bit of green now, a bit of correction coming in.